In this video, you will learn about the customary law in Malaysia. It's also known as adat. Customary law is an ancient unwritten laws that are found in a particular place where no rules has ever been enacted by the legislative authority. These laws are concerned mainly with matters of personal status, for example, landholding and inheritance. The customary laws in Malaysia can be divided into 4 categories, depending roughly on the geographical location of the states in Malaysia. The 4 categories are adat pepatih, adat temenggung, Iban customary laws and dusun customary laws. Now let's go through to adat pepatih. Adat pepatih is only confined to the state of Negeri Sembilan in West Malaysia and is mainly concerned with the provisions for landholding, including its inheritance. Adat pepatih is based on matrilineal, which is in favour of women in the distributions of inheritance, and can be distinguished from the rest of the Malay customary law in that it contains traditions that are customary sayings which have been passed down from generation to generation. This adat is not based on Islamic rules in land matters, unlike in the case of adat temenggung. Under this adat, there are 2 categories of inherited property, that is ancestral property, which is tanah pusaka in Malay, and acquired property. Ancestral property is property belonging to the tribe, that is land, paddy fields, and orchard, while acquired property refers to the property existing at the time of marriage and can be divided into 3 categories, which is harta sepencarian, harta pembawa, and also harta dapatan. According to adat pepatih, ancestral property is passed on or are vested in the female descendants of the tribe who hold the property in trust for the tribe. An important feature is that these properties cannot be sold by any will and can be inherited by female tribe members in equal share. Here is the example of case of adat pepatih. In Muna vs. Isam 1936 MLG 42, the court ordered to return the tanah pusaka, which had been transferred to a person outside the clan conditional upon payment of a sum of money. The men unfortunately do not have the right or title to claim the properties. In other words, customary land can only be owned by female members of the tribe. So based on this adat, a man is considered a member of his mother's tribe until he marries and is accepted into his wife's tribe. A man is considered as the salaried worker in the tribal system. When a man marries into a female tribe, his wife already owns a piece of land, which is for example paddy field, as her share of the customary holding. The unmarried males have the right to life occupancy over the property of their mothers. Where a female is married, the property in the descendant line and lineage membership passes through the woman. For the acquired property based on adat pepatih, the customary law rules are more complicated than that of ancestral property depending on whether it is harta sepencarian, harta pembawa, or harta dapatan. In the case of harta sepencarian, these are property acquired during their marriage. It depends on where the couple has children or not. Where there are no children from the marriage, in the case of harta sepencarian, the property will pass on to the wife upon her husband's death, and vice versa. When there are children in the marriage, the property will pass on to the surviving spouse or children. In the case of harta pembawa, which is property belonging to the husband before marriage, the property shall go to or revert his customary heirs upon his death. In the case of harta dapatan, which is the property owned by the wife at the time of marriage, it will go to her customary heirs upon her death. There are some argument appears between the application of Islamic law, on one hand and adat, on the other pertaining to inheritance and distribution of property of a deceased Malay. Islamic law and adat on these matters may differ, and a Malay is affected by both sets of law. Traditional leaders in the adat pepatih regions would prefer to uphold the adat, while Islamic authorities contend that a good Muslim should follow Islamic laws in all matters, including the distribution of property.
Adat temenggung. Adat temenggung, or patriarchal Malay customary Malay law where the men are the head of the family, was the law of the Sultan and originated during the time of the Malacca Sultanate. This customary law was ordained by the Sultan and later adopted in the other regions of Peninsular Malaysia. Unlike the case of adat pepatih, Adat Temanggung is based on patrilineal in favor of men in the distribution of inheritance principles of customary laws and is fundamentally based on Islamic principles or hukum syariah. Adat Temanggung basically holds the same rules on distributions of inheritance as the Quran. In the case of Adat Temanggung, the distribution of the deceased estate or property is as follows. A daughter is entitled to half of the entitlement of the son. For example, if the son is entitled to half share of the property, the daughter will only be entitled to a quarter share. If there is no son, a daughter is entitled to half of the deceased estate. If the deceased has two daughters and no son, the daughters will be entitled to 2/3 of the estate in equal share. The wife of the deceased will be entitled to 1/4 of the deceased estate if there are no children in the marriage. If there are children, the wife will be eligible to only 1/8 of the estate. Her husband is entitled to half of the wife's estate if there are no children. If there are children, the husband will be eligible to 1/4 of the estate. The father or mother of the deceased who dies leaving children is entitled to the 1/6 each of the deceased estate.
Next, we want to talk about Iban customary law. Iban are the single most populous in Malaysia other than the Malays. The Iban are traditionally reverend people. There are some cases in the Iban community that include in the customary law. For individualism is highly valued by the Iban, but mutual economic dependency exists, which is in turn supported by a complex code of social rules or adat. Term adat cover all of the various customary norms, jury rules and ritual that guide an individual conduct and the sanction and form of redress by which rules are upheld. As we know, the basic unit of Iban social and legal organisation is the bilik or room. Iban longhouse is gathering of independently owned family apartment. They born into a particular bilik either of the father or the mother. Regarding inheritance under Iban customary law, it is based on the membership of bilik and a person's rank of status in the family is not the issue, as long as a person remains a resident member of his or her bilik either by birth, adoption or marriage. Then about the death, for among the family, when a person in the bilik dies, all the property he or she has acquired is inherited equally by the surviving member of that bilik, unless any brother or sister and the children who are not resident member yet or they have moved to other state. While if a man dies as a member of the bilik has or just married, all property he had acquired will remain in the bilik, which consists of his parents-in-law, wife and children, and his wife's sibling and their spouses, and children who are resident members. The same rule apply for women if they are dead. About wills, it is not used among Ibans, as a debt law apply for the disposal of the decreased property. It usually involves the case of son or anak lelaki. Iban can make a valid written will and dispose the property which he had acquired during his lifetime. However, certain properties he cannot pass even though it is mentioned in the will. For instance, land are under customary tenure if there are heirs entitled to exercise the farming right.
Dusun Adat Laws. According to the customary law of Dusun tribe, the property or pusaka that was acquired before the marriage will always remain in the family. These properties cannot be passed from husband to wife and vice versa. If there are no children resulting from the marriage, then the husband's or wife's pusaka shall be devolved to the nearest blood relations. Under the Dusun Adat laws, the priority of the classes of their heirs is as follows: the children or their descendants, the brothers and the sisters of their descendants, the parents, collateral of the parents or their descendants, the grandparents, and lastly, collateral or grandparents or their descendants. A Dusun native is allowed to draw up a will under section 1 in the bracket 3 Will Ordinance Sabah, as long as the will does not go against the native custom in regards to the distribution of the properties. However, you should also take note that a will that contravenes that of a Dusun Adat laws can still become valid if the headman or their heirs consent with the provision that are found in the will.